Welcome to the third lab of the 461 course, in which we're going to take a look at how to create and run select queries inside of SQL Server Management Studio. Now, for this course, the transaction log has already been completed for all of the modules, and here I'm rolling back the database right to the start of Module 3, so the data is at the correct point for us. This is a PowerShell script that's already been written for us to be able to adjust the database. I'm starting SQL Server Management Studio and connecting through into our local SQL Server using Windows Authentication. Within the Databases section, you'll notice a number of databases, including a master, which is the default database. That contains the schema, but not the data we're going to use in this lab. We need to ensure that we're using the T-SQL database. And as you can see, it's populated with sales and product tables, and we'll refer to these as we go through the course. I need to open a solution file to be able to store any changes, any queries that we create. The layout is very similar to Visual Studio in that you need a project file or a solution file to be able to store any configuration and reference to any files that we're going to use. I already have a solution file provided for me. The data that we have here is actually from Microsoft's own 461 course, and this is sample data used for demonstration purposes. Now in here you'll notice that Solution Explorer, which is the page you use to navigate any files which are part of the project, is not open by default and you have to open that up. I always like to have Solution on the right hand side and the same amount of real estate as the Properties Inspector. So I've docked it in tab mode on the right hand side. This lab is broken into 4 exercises or 4 sections. Each of those has a bare-bone template with commenting where we can place our data. Now you'll notice on the top line I'm already using the T-SQL database. But just in case I wasn't, if I wanted to default to using T-SQL, then we use the T-SQL instruction first to jump over to the database that we're going to interrogate. So this is a very simple select statement. We're going to select everything from the sales dot customers table. Everything, of course, is represented by a wildcard. And notice the semicolon at the end. Think of that as a full stop in a sentence. It's the end of the instruction. And as you can see, we have 91 rows, 91 customer transactions. Now this time we're going to run a slightly different altered version, but effectively does the same thing. I'm placing the field names into square brackets. You'll get the same data. It's just to show how SQL Server Management Studio and how T-SQL can parse square brackets, meaning field name. And it's useful to use square brackets where there are spaces in the field name. There shouldn't be space in the field name, but if you do find there is one, use square brackets. We get the same result. This time, rather than selecting all fields, I'm specifying which fields with a comma, creating a list of the fields I want to see. Again, just checking that we're still using the T-SQL database, and we're on to exercise 2. So we're selecting the country field, from our customers table. So you'll notice that we still have our 91 rows, but there's a problem. There's quite a lot of duplication here because of customers coming from the same country. If you want to just see the distinct values, then placing the word distinct in there will look through all of the data and just pick out one instance of each country. And there we have it, 21 rows. Now you'll find that I don't tend to use the template as it was designed, and I'll drop my code in as and when I want to. Now in this element, I'm actually going to run two queries side by side, and you'll see both of the outputs presented here. The top one is the full select, the bottom one is the distinct select. In exercise 3, we're going to compare results that we find. And we're also going to introduce the concept of an alias. So you'll notice that as I type the data in, I get these error red squiggly lines because it's looking for a field name that doesn't exist. There isn't a field called c.contactName. However, you want to parse the table as an alias. What we're doing here is we're saying that we're opening the customers table, but I can't be bothered writing customers all of the time. I'll just use the letter C. So we're replacing customers with C. As soon as you add the as clause onto the from statement, then T-SQL understands what you're trying to do and the fields can be found. This time, by adding the as into the select section rather than the from, you can rename the column headings. So contact title will actually be written as title in your output. And the reason why there's square brackets, well, think back to the earlier exercise. It's because you want to introduce a space. T-SQL doesn't like spaces normally within SQL field names. So to get around the problem, we're using square brackets. Remember to also use the as clause on the from to be able to retrieve the data. The as clause in the select is to show the name of the column headings. So here we'll use the products table and we're going to use the P alias, P for products. So we're going to select the product name and we're going to parse this as product space name. So product name is the name of the column as it appears in the output. Again, for that we need square brackets. We're passing our product through from our production products table as P. And there they are. So we have 77 products. So you'll notice the error there, city and country, but we needed a comma. We're creating a list of fields. So the delimiter there is a comma. And on to section 4, again still using the T-SQL table where our data resides. It's good practice to have two copies of your data. One test environment that you can play around with, and then the live environments. Or even have two instances of the SQL Server, one that's read-only so that managers can produce reports without affecting the live data, and then simply synchronize the two on a regular basis. Here, we've passed the category ID and product names through as P, again demonstrating the alias. Now what I want to do is to extend this data slightly more. I want to look at the product IDs, sorry, category IDs, and based on that value, drop in instead a group name, so beverages, condiments, that sort of thing. So we could do this with an if statement usually, but given the fact that we have 8 different categories here, it actually would be better practice to use a select and case statement. So we're saying, well, if it's case number 2, you choose this value instead. To save a bit of time, I'm going to copy and paste and skip through this section as I produce the 8 different case options now. Okay, just finishing off. So this is the final one. And remember, we need to end this query by saying where our data is going to come from. Now I've added in one extra value. If the number is not one of these matching number values, then it's going to be something else. So we'll use else other. And we need to end the case statement, end as, and we're going to call the column that it will create, an auto-generated column, category name. So now if we run this query, you have a new column called category name, which is populated with words with category names which relate to the category IDs. Remember, it doesn't matter how many records you have here, 77 as in my case now, or 77 million, it really doesn't matter. T-SQL is a very quick and easy language to use. I'm just going to add in one extra field now, a second case statement. So if the category is a certain series of ID numbers, then it might be a regular stock, or here we go, in this case a campaign product. Otherwise, it's a non-campaign product. We have to make a slight alteration here. Because we're running 2 select case statements, you will need a comma after the first end as, at the end of the first case statement, to say there's another one still to be read and parsed before we reach the from section of the query. So I just need to make a slight alteration here and add the comma in. And now if we run that, notice the comma there, and then the end of the campaign section. And now we have our category name, but also now our campaigns, or is campaign field. Well, thank you very much for watching. This completes Lab 3.